Good evening, dear viewers of Equinoxe Television. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the news on Equinoxe Television. Our major stories tonight. Today marks exactly 55 years since the execution of Ernest Nwandi in Bafoussam, a pivotal moment in Cameroon's history. The Cameroonian nationalist and revolutionary was a key figure in the country's fight for independence against French colonial rule. But who was Ernest Nwandi and what drove him to become a symbol of resistance against colonialism? Answers in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast. Also, Cameroonian activist Andre Blaise Esama remains detained in Douala's Newbell prison without a formal detention order. His lawyer says the initial 15-day custody has expired, calling the situation alarming. Those are top stories tonight. Good evening once more, and thank you so much for choosing Equinoxe Television. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. I'll begin this newscast in the southwest region, where the governor of that region, Bena Okala Bilai, is unhappy with some mayors who failed to execute state-funded projects in their municipalities in the year 2025. He expressed his disappointment during the launch of the 2026 regional budget in Boya. He warned that he won't hesitate to take action against contractors and also mayors responsible for delayed or, let's say, abandoned projects, citing examples like the Kumbai Kondo Titi Road, as our Boya-based correspondent Rex Afcon tells us.
During his address in which he declared the state budget for the Southwest region this 2026, Governor Bena Okala Bilai outlined some divisions in which projects for 2025 have not fully been executed.
It is regrettable to observe that as at January 8, 2026, some council projects in my division and Yang division were still below 50% level of execution, where a good number of council projects in Kupe Maningumba and the Diadem were slightly above 50% level of execution.
Worse still, he says in some cases, payments are completed when the work is yet to be completed.
You listen to the statistics. Financial executions are above the physical execution. Is that normal? People want to be paid without working. That's what it means in common language. So we should stop it.
For the interest of the local population, practices like this must cease.
By behaving like that, we are preventing the citizen, the community, to benefit from the state. Many projects are under 50% realization, whereas the financial executions are above 70-80%.
For the year 2026, the state budget for the Southwest region currently stands at 25.3 billion. This is lower than that of 2025, which was about 30.9 billion francs CFA. Key focus this year will be the reinforcement of security in areas observing troubles, ensuring infrastructural development, and also emphasize on the promotion of youth development projects.
Rex Afcon reporting there. And now to one of our major lead stories. Cameroonian activist Andre Blaise Esama remains detained in the Newbell prison in Douala since November 7, 2025 without a formal detention order. His lawyer, barrister Fabien Kenye, highlights an alarming situation, stating Esama's initial 15-day administrative custody has expired without legal extension or an arrest warrant. Sedu Chakutio has more on this incident.
Cameroonian activist Andre Blaise Esama is still behind bars, arrested on November 7, 2025 and imprisoned in Newbell prison in Douala. He remains detained till today without any formal detention order justifying his incarceration. One of his lawyers, barrister Fabien Kenye, reveals an alarming illegal situation.
Il avait été traqué par la suite, arrêté le 7 novembre, gardé à la PJ et le 10 novembre, il a été...
To Barrister Fabien Kenyé, Esama was initially placed in administrative custody for 15 days on the orders of the governor of the littoral region.
Gens du littoral pour une période de 15 jours. Donc il devait séjourner à New Bell 10 novembre au 25 novembre. Il se trouve que jusqu'au 25 novembre.
Upon the expiration of this period, no legal extension was notified and no arrest warrant was issued to regularize his situation before a judge.
Madame la présidente du tribunal de grande instance du Fourier afin qu'elle ordonne sa libération immédiate.
However, he adds that in such cases, the judge is obliged to release the detainee immediately. His case had been adjourned until January 14, 2026 for further submissions from the public prosecutor.
On a renvoyé son affaire au 14 janvier qui était hier. Je m'y suis rendu. Je m'attendais à ce que éventuellement le représentant du ministère public, n'est-ce pas, produit ses réquisitions, ce qu'il n'a pas fait. Non seulement il ne l'a pas fait, il se trouve que le juge a été changé.
Barrister Fabien Kenyé believes that this arrest is part of a pattern of persecutions that has lasted for over 2 decades, aimed at stifling all criticism of the government.
Il faudrait bien que la personne qui a amené Esama André Blaise à comparaître, n'est-ce pas, produise le titre de détention en vertu duquel il est détenu. Mais je n'ai pas eu cela.
Zipang Siakam, who was also arrested alongside Esama, is in a critical situation according to his co-detainee.
Son co-détenu, Zipang Siakam Scotty Wiener, ne s'est pas présenté à l'audience. J'ai eu dit par Esama André Blaise lui-même qu'il était à l'infirmerie et qu'il aurait fait un AVC. Je n'en sais pas plus.
A key figure in activism, Esama is best known for his radical fight against colonial symbol. His case was once again adjourned to the 21st of January 2026.
And now we talk something else. The commemoration of the assassination of nationalist fighter is currently going on at the head office of the African Movement for New Independence, Manidem, here in Douala. Ernest Owanti died on the 15th of January. That is making it 54 years today. Babla Janetta now tells us more from the head office of Manidem.
Militants, supporters and sympathizers of the African Movement for New Independence and Democracy, Manidem political party, have converged here in the party's headquarters in the country's economic capital, Douala, to commemorate the assassination of nationalist fighter Ernest Owanti, who was assassinated on the 15th of January 1971 in the West Regional Capital, Bafoussam, and they are highlighting the struggle, the fight for independence of the nationalist fighter Ernest Owanti and the others like Felix Roland Moumier, and of course other persons who contributed to the fight for the independence of the Republic of Cameroon. And after independence, they continued the fight for what they qualified as the true independence of the Republic of Cameroon. Of course, we are referring to the then La République du Cameroon, former East Cameroon. And we spoke to one of the persons here, the wife of detained political leader Njekam Chamini Makini, who gave her testimony of Ernest Owanti and the influence the political leader, the nationalist fighter, had on her husband.
I am honored to be here today to be able to commemorate this great leader that we had, Ernest Owanti, but also to commemorate all of those that have taken up the fight that he has. He really had a great impact on Jacob Chamini, not just because he is related to him on his mother's side, but also because he had the opportunity to see him in Banga as a young child. And just like the late Anisette Kane and even Henriette Ekwe had an opportunity to see Ernest Owanti, they were all impacted by him. And it is that impact that led them to all join this struggle for the liberation of Cameroon. And so it is really an honor to be able to be with you today to commemorate him, but to commemorate also those of you here that are fighting alongside and continuing that struggle that Ernest Wanji, Mumie, and Umnyobe started, and those before them. So I would like to
who is also one of the persons fighting for change in Cameroon. And this commemoration is taking place within the context of what is qualified as a gloomy atmosphere marked by the death of Anise Kane, the president of the African Movement for New Independence and Democracy, who died in detention in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, and we're told here that his corpse is still being expected. The militants of Manidem have written to the President of the Republic, and they are still expecting government to hand over the corpse of the President of Manidem. Another thing coming up here is the call on all Cameroonians to participate in the fight, the struggle for change in Cameroon and for the emancipation of the African continent. Babla Jonathan reporting.
Thank you so much, Babila Jonathan, for those updates. And now we take you out of Cameroon, where Nigerian players are fuming over Ghanaian referee Daniel Laria's officiating game in their Afcon semi-final loss to Morocco. Though they have congratulated Morocco for the win, they are calling on CAF to make the game equal for all teams. Bright Osai Samuel of Nigeria and a Moroccan player talked to our reporter Smaji Kangiril at the end of the semi-final game at the Moulay Abdullah Sports Complex. His report.
After the hotly contested encounter between hosts, the Atlas Lions of Morocco against the Super Eagles of Nigeria at the Prince Moulay Abdullah Sports Complex Stadium in Rabat, we saw the victory of Morocco over Nigeria 4-2 after post-match penalty shootout. At the mix zone of the stadium, Moroccan players expressed their satisfaction for their qualification to the finals, which they have been waiting for the past 50 years.
This trophy for 50 years now, so it's a long time for everyone in the country, so can't wait to be on Sunday.
It was total disappointment on the faces of the Nigerian players, who blamed the poor officiating of the game.
Very disappointed. Proud of the team. We played well, penalties is a lottery. It's luck, and we didn't win the luck today. But very proud of the team. I think the back four was excellent. And I've got things that is really paining me to say, but first of all, I want to say, Morocco won. I'm not taking anything away from Morocco, but I think the referee was appalling today. Making decisions that were difficult for us to take, but like I said, I take nothing away from Morocco. They won, and I wish them all the best.
Bright, however, says this far he has enjoyed the tournament.
Me personally, I think I've enjoyed this Afcon. You boot you up.
Egypt and Nigeria will face off in the bronze medal match on Saturday, January 17, 2026 in Tangier, while the grand finale will be at the Prince Moulay Abdullah Sports Complex Stadium on Sunday, January 18, 2026.
That sports element done by a report on special assignment in Morocco's Smaji Kangiril ends this first part of the news. Talking Point comes up next. Joining us live from the United Kingdom is veteran journalist Eric Chinje. Good evening. It's a pleasure having you live on Talking Point right now.
Thank you very much, Immaculate, and thanks for this opportunity to talk to your audience.
Yesterday, 14 people, including 7 children, were killed in a village known as Gidado. It is found in Du subdivision, Dongamantum division of the Northwest region. 10 others got injured. And how did you feel after watching those images?
You know, this should be considered a national tragedy. In any normal country with values, and especially with that value human life, every single death, everything should be done to avoid a single death. And when you start having death in numbers, in double digits, that becomes a national tragedy. And I think we ought to see it as such. In most countries, a senior member of the community, from the president of the republic to the, somebody should be there to condole with all these people who've lost family members and friends. But I don't know where we situate, the value of human life. You're telling me 14 people died. I had about 40, not too long ago after the election, 60. This should not be tolerated. Something needs to be done. Cameroon is sick. Cameroon needs healing. A leader of that country, the president, if he's still, should be talking about healing. That's, we are fighting to bring about change. And the leader we're fighting to bring about, who was elected by the people, is Chiroma. It's precisely for that reason. It's precisely for that reason that we can go back and of our country. Go back to that Cameroon that empathizes, that feels for its sons and daughters, that works for the improvement of the lives of its people. That's what we're talking about. So this death is another signal that this sick nation needs healing.
And I would like to make this precision on the fact that according to Cameroon's constitutional framework, only the president of the Constitutional Council has authority to officially declare the winner of an election, and that person is President Paul Biya. However, presidential elections have passed, results have been proclaimed, Paul Biya has been sworn in as President of the Republic. Meanwhile, Issa Chiroma Bakari is seeking exile in Gambia. Is it over? Can we say that we have turned to a new page at the moment?
Well, I hope not. I think the demand for change is still there. I think the desire for change is still there. I think the need to build a nation based on truth is still there. And if the truth is that Mr. Chiroma won the elections, which I think everybody's agreed he did, then let's figure out how to get back to the truth. I think that's what this is all about. We cannot, a house of cards of lies cannot survive. This Cameroon cannot survive going the way it's going right now, and yet we need a country where we all can feel at home and want to contribute to building it, so that every single child born in that country can look to tomorrow with hope and confidence. That's what we want to do. That's what we're talking about. This is not about any single person. Nobody. This is not about Mr. Biya or Mr. Chiroma. It's about Cameroon. We want a better country, and we can only have a better country if we deal in truths. Look at what's happening with the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church cannot even come out with the results of what its election observers registered. Let them come out with those results and tell the world. It will make a difference. It's not about politics. The fact that they've sent out observers brings them into the process, and let them be true to themselves and deal with it. So, I'm saying this to make the point about the need to build a country based on truth. That's a country that God protects, not a country based on lies. I want to tell you, Mr. Chiroma is working to come back home. And I think Cameroonians ought to be open to that. I honestly believe it, that they should, hopefully he will, this will happen in the coming, I don't know what time frame, I don't want to dare to give a time, put a time, a timeline to this, but I know he's working very hard to come back home and to help, put things in order.
Now, talking about the Catholic Church, the president of the National Episcopal Conference of Cameroon, His Grace, Andrew Kia, recently called on Cameroonians to take their responsibilities as political actors and stop hiding behind the Catholic Church and expecting her to do their duty. Are you trying to say the bishops or the Catholic Church should focus, are you trying to say they should focus more on politics rather than preaching the gospel?
No, not at all. They shouldn't. If that's what I'm not sure what they define as their jobs. I suppose the church is there to protect the weak, to protect those who are being mistreated, maltreated, not respected. I think the church is there for the poor and the weak. And if they decide, if getting involved in elections is political, they would never have sent out observers. They sent out observers. That's part of being responsible citizens. And they did the right thing to send out the observers. And what we are saying today is, okay, what did your observers see? We know what they saw. You know why? Because people who are unhappy with the current stance of the church and who are privy to this information, they brought it out. So we know what the church recorded. Why not bring it out officially? What is this dabbling in untruths and falsehoods and lies? You don't associate that with the church. There is a problem. I don't want to mention any particular name, but even the highest authorities of the Catholic Church in Cameroon are divided on this. Why should the truth does not come in halves? The truth is total. The truth is immutable. The truth is perfect. Don't divide the truth. So why is the church not able to stand with the truth? That's what we're saying. And that truth will point to the fact that Mr. Chiroma won the election. It's as simple as that. So why not at least play a role in figuring out how we resolve this problem so that Cameroon can come back together again and move forward?
Now, what do you think justifies the desperate resistance to change by Biya's regime? Historically, all political contenders have either been arrested or sent on exile. We start from Nijon Frundi, who was placed under house arrest for the 1992 presidential elections, to Professor Maurice Kamto in 2018, and now we are having Issa Chiroma Bakari. What are your thoughts on all these happenings?
Yeah, but that's exactly the point. Listen to me carefully, Immaculate. In 1990, across Africa, there was a wave, a democratic wave, and countries adopted that way, rode that way, and became, introduced multipartism, and there were elections across Africa in many countries. I'll give you 5. Senegal, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya, Nigeria. In all of these countries, there have been at least 3, 4, or 5 new presidents that have come into office and been voted out or served their 2 terms because their term limits. In all of these countries. And something interesting is that in all of these countries, we've seen economic growth. We've seen infrastructure improvements. We've seen public services improve because every new leader has to commit to doing something. And they have done it. In all of the countries I've mentioned, Senegal, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Kenya, improvements. The only country of similar stature is Cameroon, where there've been no changes, there's been no new leadership, no leadership change, and where the economy has gone down. The only country where the economy, the GDP, has dropped significantly, where public institutions are no longer reliable, so no investors can come into Cameroon for precisely that reason. What is it about us that we can't see the writing on the wall, that we've got a problem, and then, and that the change at the helm gives us a chance to revisit our social norms and to revisit the programs for development that we aspire to. That's, so we talk about, for example, emergence in 2035. It's not going to happen in Cameroon because there are no new ideas for moving that economy. Emergence comes with economic improvement. There are none. So nothing is going to happen. The democratic experience has failed Cameroon. Mr. Biya cannot claim to have introduced democracy to Cameroon, because if he had, would have seen these changes, would have seen this alternance of leadership. It's not happening. So he's failed the country.
Now, Professor Olivier Mbile's petition to impeach President Paul Biya has been rejected by the Constitutional Council, citing incompetence. In his request, he cites President Paul Biya's inability to continue exercising his duty as a president. Are you surprised with that verdict?
Professor Mbile's action, of course, is laudable, and but it points to the same problem I'm emphasizing, that this is not a country that's ready for change. This is not a leadership that wants to see any improvements in Cameroon, because it would come with the adoption of new ideas, with the willingness to improve on the lives of ordinary citizens. And this regime is not willing, it's not open to that. And that's part of the problem. And what has just happened with the Constitutional Council underscores the tragedy of the Biya years. Why do they want Mr. Biya, a man I came to respect, why do they want him to end up so badly? For history to hold it against him, that he destroyed his own country. I don't know why the Constitutional Council cannot be a Constitutional Council. Why would they say they're not able, they're incompetent to deal with a case that is clearly in the books, of the constitutional, clearly in the laws that created that council? They're just afraid to take up anything that will threaten the system. And what system do we have? We have a system that's been captured by a handful of people. Every Cameroonian listening to me knows that this is the truth. Mr. Biya is not in charge anymore. Is there anybody who doubts it? And if the president is in charge, let him come up with a government. Don't even let him come up with a government.
Let's equally take note that in Cameroon, the power to initiate the indictment of the President of the Republic rests with the National Assembly and the Senate, while the Court of Impeachment has a jurisdiction to try the President. Thank you so much, Eric Chinje, for accepting my invitation tonight on Talking Point.
Thank you, Immaculate. Thanks for the opportunity to speak, and I hope we all can work for the betterment of our country. Thank you so much.
Veteran journalist Eric Chinje speaking to us live from the United Kingdom. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your keen attention on tonight's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime news. It's on that note that we put an end to tonight's edition. Have a wonderful evening in the company of interesting programs on Equinoxe TV. Bye-bye for now.